happening tonight in Vancouver.
We absolutely can say to come in here, you have to be immunized.
Less carrot, more stick could be ahead for unvaccinated people in BC as the province pushes for max vaccinations to get back to this.
Dancing, attending music festivals, the arts, fall fairs, and weddings without restrictions.
The last heatwave we had, it was like the same thing as when it snows here. People aren't prepared for it.
We're headed towards another stretch of hot weather this week. How will it compare to last month's heat dome as Vancouver prepares to protect those who are more vulnerable to the heat?
It tells me that women are starting to kind of claim the space that we've always wanted and deserved.
Canadian women are bringing in the medals, winning our country's first gold, silver, and bronze at the 2020 Games in Tokyo. We hear from a three-time Canadian Olympic athlete about the impact of these wins for women in sports.
This is City News everywhere.
As BC is starting a 2-week push to vaccinate the unvaccinated here, the tone around COVID-19 immunizations in the province seems to be shifting.
Being vaccinated is not mandatory in our province, and it won't be mandatory in our province. But should you not be vaccinated, measures will be taken.
No specifics yet, but overall sounding less honey and more vinegar than in the past. Proof of vaccine will likely not be provincially mandated ever, but the top doctor is clear she supports businesses making that move.
If I was running a nightclub, I want to make sure that my staff are protected. And yes, we absolutely can say to come in here, you have to be immunized.
Unvaccinated post-secondary students could also face more challenges.
Universities are looking at what are the measures they need to take in their setting to make it as safe as possible. And so that may mean, if you're living in residence, that you need to have proof of immunization.
And with healthcare workers, Dr. Henry Clear, she's running out of patience.
If people choose not to be immunized and you work in healthcare, then you will not be able to work in certain settings without taking additional measures. There will be consequences for that decision,
including regular testing. In the province, there are nearly 20% of people who are eligible to be vaccinated who still haven't been. Northern Health and the Interior with the lowest vaccination rates. The plan now is to meet people where they are.
Upping the number of small intermittent clinics that are in different communities, in different places, addressing different groups.
And more drop-in spaces for first and second doses. Convenience and access cited as issues as much as the fear of the vaccine. But overall, few absolute anti-vaxxers. It's usually around 2%. That's higher now.
For COVID vaccine, our studies have shown us that it's maybe as many as 5% of people.
BC is doing well, but even with 80% of those eligible in the province with 1 dose, 60% with 2, we are far from done.
There's no magic number, but as high as we can possibly get, and I've always been wanting to shoot for 100.
For City News in Victoria, I'm News 1130's Lisa Yuzda.
COVID numbers have once again spiked in BC, with the province reporting 150 new cases today. So that's up from 94 yesterday. 44 people are in hospital and 22 are in intensive care. Once again, the bulk of the new cases are in Interior Health, where 95 of the latest infections have been reported. In the last 24 hours, there have been no new deaths.
The last heatwave we had, it was like, it was just everyone was caught with their pants down.
Last month's heat dome in BC was deadly, killing hundreds of people, many of whom were seniors. This week, we're headed towards another stretch of above-average temperatures. And in Vancouver, the city is preparing to protect those who are more vulnerable, keeping in mind the loss of life we saw in June. The BC Coroner Service estimates that out of the 815 people who died during the record-breaking heat wave last month, 583 were likely a result of extreme temperatures. Trey Helton with the Overdose Prevention Society says last month's heat wave was especially difficult in the downtown east side, where many are homeless or precariously housed.
We saw a lot of really bad heat stroke situations combined with overdoses that made it more complicated. BC Ambulance Services was already overworked and overrun, so it was a tough situation.
clearly, I think we've all learned a lot from this most recent extreme heat event with the heat dome.
The City of Vancouver says staff are preparing to deploy the city's heat response plan if heat warnings or extreme heat alerts are issued this week, which they say includes additional measures on top of what's already available in the summer. That includes monitoring outdoor spaces for people suffering heat-related illness and more.
What the city, my understanding is that we will be activating more cooling spaces, including pet-friendly cooling spaces and overnight cooling spaces. We've been stockpiling bottled water, excuse me, and we'll be making our misting stations and water stations more readily available.
The city also says this weekend's forecast doesn't meet Environment Canada's threshold for triggering a heat warning or Vancouver Coastal Health's threshold for an extreme heat alert. CityNews meteorologist Michael Coos says we'll start seeing the hotter temperatures from Thursday to Saturday across Metro Vancouver.
We're not going to have temperatures quite as dramatic on the high side or the low side as that unprecedented record heat from late June, early July for a lot of spots, but it is going to be warmer than average. And that's a huge part of the story, the overnight lows. When the overnight lows are in the upper teens and only for an hour or two, a couple of hours in the morning, it's just not enough to let alone cool off your place, more importantly, cool off your core temperature.
Coos adds we'll start to see these above average temperatures begin to cool down starting on Sunday. In Vancouver, Keir Junos, City News.
This week, the votes were tallied, and they have voted overwhelmingly in favor of a strike mandate.
A strike vote by thousands of border workers could derail Canada's plans to reopen the U.S. border.
A man found dead last week in a burned-out vehicle in Langley had links to the Lower Mainland gang conflict. Homicide investigators say 36-year-old Christopher Roy of Vancouver had known gang ties, and they think he was targeted. iHit wants anyone who knew him to come forward.
This week, the votes were tallied, and they have voted overwhelmingly in favor of a strike mandate.
Thousands of border workers are threatening to strike just as Canada counts down to reopening the border to fully vaccinated Americans.
This could very well jeopardize Canada's plan to reopen the Canada-U.S. border to fully vaccinated Americans travelers on August the 9th, which could result in dramatic disruptions to the flow of goods, services, and people entering Canada.
8,500 employees represented by 2 unions voted in favor of strike action, demanding safeguards against harassment and discrimination. The unions would not share exact numbers, but they do say the strike could happen as soon as August 6th.
They're clearly fed up with the disrespect they're being shown by the CBSA and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government, and they're ready to do what it takes to get a fair contract.
The Canada-U.S. border has been closed to non-essential travel since March of 2020. A strike could mean slowdowns of commercial traffic, disruption of duties and taxes collected, and slow shipping and parcel deliveries.
CBSA wants essentially our jobs to matter more than our families. They want our shift change notice down from 7 days to 48 hours. They want non-negotiated schedules, so imposing the times we work at 24/7 operations.
The unions have been without a contract since June 2018. CityNews reached out to the Canadian Border Service Agency for comment, but did not receive a response. In Ottawa, Nigel Newlove, City News.
People need multiple options depending on what their needs are and who they are.
The pandemic has had many challenges, but food is one less worry, thanks to this community initiative in an East Vancouver neighborhood.
People need multiple options depending on what their needs are and who they are.
There have been many challenges during the pandemic, but when it comes to having access to food, one neighborhood in East Vancouver is putting forward some solutions. If you've seen these pop-up fridges across East Vancouver, you're not alone. Free pop-up food stands have been turning up across East Vancouver as part of the Vancouver Community Fridge Project. The team behind the initiative says the mission is to combat food insecurity by encouraging the community to provide free and safe community aggregated food.
This is non-biased, it's just help yourself, take what you need, and that's it, and I think that everybody will probably respect it.
Not everyone has a lot of money to spend on food because they still have to pay for rent and a roof over their head.
So I use it myself kind of as like a give and take idea.
The fridges can be found across East Vancouver, and the locations can be found on the project's Instagram page and website. The organizers call themselves femme identifying people that are BIPOC strong and maintain that everyone has a right to eat. They say they're working to reduce the stress of what can feel like insurmountable challenges. The feedback from the community?
I hope there's more that happens. I hope they pop up everywhere.
Kimia Shokuhi, City News in Vancouver.
They are definitely carrying Team Canada right now.
Canada's first gold, silver, and bronze medals at the Games in Tokyo have all been won by women, leading many to appreciate the power of our female athletes and what their successes might do for the next generation.
It tells me that women are starting to kind of claim the space that we've always wanted and deserved.
As of Tuesday morning, the first 8 Olympic medals going to Canada have all been won by women. Leah Pels is a 3-time Olympian and says she believes all our champions so far probably went in with the same mindset.
I think the women who have medaled probably had the lens where they just went and it was business. It's like, what do I need to do to compete well? And that's all they think about. Right?
It's so impressive to me, but we also need to remember that the women athletes also led Canada's medal charge 4 years ago in Rio de Janeiro, accounting for 16 of Canada's 22 medals.
Sportsnet 650's Lena Satagian says there have already been some pretty astounding wins for Canadian athletes.
They are making a lot, or breaking a lot of records, I should say. One of them being the first judo medal won by Jessica Klimkate by the Canadians. She won a bronze medal in the under 57 kilogram category. Maud Sharon is another impressive one. She won in the weightlifting, and she only just started weightlifting 8 years ago. And she won the second gold medal.
Richmond City Councillor and 2-time Olympian Alexa Liu says it's taken a long time for female athletes to be given adequate support to train for the Games.
I think a little bit of it is because things that we've done in the past to make it easier for women to stay in sport longer. 2 of the women who are competing at the Olympic Games have given birth in the last year. And it just speaks to the ability financially, emotionally, and sport-wise to be able to stay in your sport when you have just had a baby.
I want to go on American Ninja Warrior, the Olympics and stuff like that. I'm considering going to the Olympics. It sounds really fun to do that stuff and get medals. Honestly, every time I've gone into skating competitions, I've won silver and bronze.
Pell says seeing these incredible female athletes do so well can have a really powerful impact on the aspirations of young women and girls.
For young girls watching or for young athletes watching, it's permission giving. It's like, I can do that. I can be a full-time athlete and I can do that.
In Coquitlam, Ashley Burr, City News.
By the way, this just happened. Canadian swimmer Penny Alexiak has just won a bronze in the 200-meter freestyle. So yeah, the women just keep bringing the hardware home. That, by the way, is it for Vancouver's news, which is always available on the radio with News 1130 or online anytime at citynews1130.com. Your next edition of City News is tonight at 11. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.